Hi, good morning. Hello, Lois, good evening. Welcome back to the Digital Dish.
Yeah, good to see you, Jeannie. And I don't know if our listeners know, but actually I manage sales in ISG. I used to manage it for the Americas. Now I'm out in Europe. And so sales is a little bit in my blood. I've been doing it for quite some time. And we thought what a great idea to bring a few more great female sales leaders on the stage and we can have a bit of a chat. Because I think when we think about sales, we often think of, oh, the guys were out there playing golf and that's where the sales happens.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's some really great female leaders out there that we just really are great at sales ourselves. So we thought, let's just have a chat about it.
See, I love this idea because I've heard from a lot of people. I'm in the operational end of things, but I do know to make my operational thing happen, you've got to have the sales. So I'm pretty excited that today we're going to have Amanda Lauder, who is with T-Mobile, and she's the Enterprise Account Executive. And honestly, she's so energetic and so excited to have this conversation about sales and with you. And then you're bringing somebody too from the team.
I I did. So I have Megan Walling who's joining, and she actually used to be on my team when I was in the Americas, and she took over America's sales. And so she's our chief sales officer for ISG. So she also is very energetic and very passionate about sales. So we should have a pretty good conversation.
Well, great. Let's go to it now. I'm gonna just listen in and see how it goes. Let's go talk to Amanda and Megan right now.
Hey.
Hello, ladies. Oh, I'm very excited. I have been waiting for this conversation. It's not very often that we just get to talk about sales amongst those of us who like and love sales. So this is going to be a pretty cool thing. So maybe what we do is first do a little bit of introductions. Amanda, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into sales, if you fell into it, if you've always wanted to do it. Just give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I think from when I started taking some of those classes in high school decades ago and then college, every single personality test kept on, putting me in the same direction: sales, 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 marketing, sales. And, even down to, what career path specifically in sales I should take. And most of it was, in the medical device sales or medical something. And it sounded so great to me, except I hate blood. I hate everything medical. And so I'm like, gosh, everything says I should do this. But anyways, I definitely came into telecom, and I think I was sort of born into telecom. My dad worked for Nortel for 30 years, over 30 years. And I always wondered what he did exactly, but he was a sales engineer. And I think that really started my passion for, how telecom is the backbone of communication and technology. So that was something that was really, really, appealing to me. But yeah, so I, started out in the wireline service provider business. I actually interned with a company that belongs to you guys, believe it or not, now, when I came out of college. And so, that helped me get to take a look at a lot of the great carriers out there at the time. And so, being on the service provider side of things was really fantastic for me. I did that for over a decade. And then I really got interested in the VAR world and understanding, I understand the connectivity portion of it, and the service portion of it, but what is the hardware that makes the service work? And I wanted to understand both of that, and really get to be well versed in the partner world and the channel world that helps to bring all of these solutions together for one complete, comprehensive, network architecture for our clients. So that has led me now to T-Mobile. I'm an enterprise account executive there. I've been here for just a little bit over a year now, and I just could not be more thrilled with the choice that I made. I can go on and on about how T-Mobile is really changing the landscape in sales, and some of the things that are just humongous in what we're doing right now. So it was a little long-winded background on me, but There's no lack of passion here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think many of us don't even realize all the networking that happens underneath everything that we do, whether it's in our home offices or when we go into work or we're at the grocery store, right? Everything has a pretty massive network underneath it. So that's a pretty exciting area to be into. So Megan, I've known Megan a few years, and I know too that you had a bit of an interesting path to get into your current role. Give us a little bit of background.
Did. I think there is an element of successful salespeople that is a little bit personality oriented. So what's interesting for me is I think I got into sales more starting with a passion for entrepreneurship. I actually got a scholarship. My undergrad is on entrepreneurship, and I got a scholarship for something I wrote about how I determined I was an entrepreneur. And it was because when I was 6 or 7 years old, I sold butterfly clips on the playground. I found a gas station in the middle of nowhere that had these popular little butter clips for super cheap, and they were super expensive at Claire's for those of us that went to Claire's when they were younger. But they were super expensive at Claire's, and so I would buy them all at this gas station, and I would go sell them on the playground. And yeah, I must have been like, I don't know, early grade school. And my mom said, "You're my little entrepreneur." And I didn't know what that word meant. So I learned what that word meant. And long story short, I mean, it just kind of progressed from there. I've always, I had an interest in running my own business and went to school for design. And at first, I was going to run an interior design firm of my own. So IT is definitely it was a long road to get there. But I think through entrepreneurship and sales, in college, I worked full time and I leased apartments. And I just kind of found my knack because for me, it was about the person and the relationship and helping them. So I got a bonus for every lease that I signed, and I ended up being able to pay tuition with my bonus money every semester. And so to me, it's that relationship component, and it doesn't matter necessarily what you're selling. I won't say that I came into the IT world because I had a passion for IT, but I had a passion for people. And even in little things such as renting their apartment, just kind of understanding, what's important to them and being able to match that and showcase what we had. And that just progressed from one place to another that I worked. Some local entrepreneurs actually recruited me to run their gym in the same city after I leased their children apartments. And so that was a startup, and it was selling gym memberships. So it progressed from there. IT became a role as I worked for a website design and development company. So that was really my first true sales role. And I ended up being recruited into a service provider, a large service provider in a sales role, because interestingly enough, they were actually looking for the business side. They had a lot of people that could talk IT all day long, but they didn't have people that could really understand IT enough and really match that to understanding business needs. And so I really got a knack in that role, just being the intermediary between, IT and business, and being able to translate IT to really meeting business needs and how they're adding value to the business. And, long story short, I ended up here at ISG from there, and I had the pleasure of working under Lois for a few years. So that was fantastic. And yeah, now she handed over the Americas reins to me while she has gone to Europe. So it's been a great experience. And I'm excited to be here today. So thanks, Lois. This is exciting. We don't get a chance to do this much. So
you have a home turf advantage.
There you go.
That's right. Well, what's so cool about what both of you said, and, I'm going to just pose this to both of you, and we can just have a conversation about this. But it feels, when you think of sales, or at least when I first thought about sales, to think, oh, I can't do sales. Like, that's just not me. It seems like there's so much more to sales than, calling up someone cold and try to get them to agree to buy something. Like, that is really, it might be a portion of sales, but there, especially in our kind of business, it is so multidimensional as to how you're really successful in sales. And what are some of the things that you said? You both said relationships, but tell me a little bit more. What do you think is the most important aspect to how we are successful? Either one. Amanda, you want to start?
Sure. Hopefully there's not too much of a delay. I got a little delay on my side, but hopefully you can hear me okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think, gosh, what's the secret sauce to make a good salesperson? You'd have every incredible, wealthy, sales managers if you could just write that formula down to hire these star performers every time. But I think it really takes a lot of empathy, and resilience, and then effective communication. And I think that like you said, Megan, you have to have a passion to want to connect with people, and that truly exists for me for sure. I genuinely like being around people, and I genuinely like learning about people's cultures and their, all the things that make an individual unique. I like learning about some of the things that they're going through, and connecting on that level. And so I feel like that aspect of my personality really helps me connect with people. It helps me be genuine with people, and it helps me, kind of earn trust from them. So I definitely think that, gosh, that empathy is such a strong word for a really great salesperson. But then it also takes a lot of resilience. I think resilience is, if you don't have that, if you don't have tough skin, if you're not able to be told no a million times, no, we're okay right now, we don't need your services, thank you so much for the phone call, no, that's actually, I'm in charge of all of this, so there's not really anyone else you can call, that would be worth talking to. No, 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 no. Actually, Amanda, we are looking for that right now. It takes a million no's to get there. And so you really do need to be very resilient and be told, I've had a lot of issues with this product, or with this, option, or with this service. Why is it different right now, Amanda? If you can't tell me that, I don't know that we can talk any further, right? So there's a lot of aspects of being a very resilient individual. And then I think, most importantly is effective communication. You have to be able to communicate, not just, with your client, or creating new relationships, or being able to, have that 30 seconds, C-level conversation on the spot, but being able to be an advocate internally for your client, on behalf of your client, making sure that you are fighting internally to get your client everything that they need, so that your word to your client is iron steel, right? And so I think that that's really important. And then I would just go one step further, that is just incredibly transformative, that's happening within, the company that I'm at now, is being able to actually ideate for your client. So, especially when we're in this service provider world, and, we get stuck into this idea that we are a commodity goods, right? And, maybe we all have this beautiful map. I'm not going to name any colors here, red, blue, and magenta, but maybe they all look very similar. What's the difference? Why would a consumer, a customer, or an enterprise client, want to choose us over something that might be able to do something similar, right? And so I think that means that the salesperson, there's even more, I would say, more opportunity for a salesperson to become better at ideating for their clients, coming up with some ideas and a value add when we go to our clients with a solution, not just, hey, are you interested in what I've got underneath the cape here? It's more of, I want to help you, Mr. Customer, with some of these business outcomes, some of the things that is really high on your priority list, and something that might be able to generate value and revenue for your company. So those are some of the things that I think can be really good. If we were going to bullet point, I think that those would be some of the great traits of a good salesperson.
Yeah, I agree with everything Amanda said. I'll add to that a little bit. I won't repeat, so I'll focus on what I can add to that. And I would say, Amanda, you talked about effective communication. I think a massive part of that is the ability to listen, and to actively listen. That sounds easy, and it's not. There's so many discussions I've been in, whether it's someone trying to sell something to me, or me observing another sales discussion, and the person that's selling tends to just want to get out what they have to say. And they miss all of this great information from the person that they're selling to, because your sales pitch, so to speak, should not be a rinse and repeat. It should be very specific to this individual. You're not selling X, you're selling a solution to someone's needs, right? And you have to truly understand what are those needs? How do they impact them? What are their concerns about them? And so when they're sharing information, it's active listening first, but then also being able to really respond to that and to be able to not just have a standard pitch or this is how we do that, but really address all of those concerns. And it ties back to so many of the things that you shared. Empathy, for one. I always try myself in their shoes. I think about what would be my biggest fear in this transaction? What would be my biggest concern? And then how do I, imagining them in that position, help to soothe those concerns? But also being genuine. I mean, nobody wants a sleazy salesperson, right? And unfortunately, sometimes people just put those words together. It's so horrible. But no, a real good salesperson is the furthest. I actually used to hate to identify myself as a salesperson because I just felt there was such a negative connotation around that word. It drove me insane. But I think, there's more and more really great salespeople out there, and CIOs, they understand when there's somebody that's really trying to meet a need. And as a successful salesperson in a long-term range, you're always going to do so much better because you're not going to offer things that aren't really going to add value at the end, right? And again, Amanda, you spoke about kind of being a representation of what that person needs internally. I had a lot of experience at that, my past job. And you really had to go to battle for what they need. And many times I would feel like I actually worked for them. So I would feel like I was an employee of my client going internally trying to figure out their problem. But I think that's one of the best mindsets you can put yourself in, because that's how you're really going to help someone and provide something of value. So it ties into everything you said, but I think just active listening and the ability to sell, not a solution thing, but a solution to a problem. And you've got to know what that problem is in the first spot. So.
Well, I think one of the things that both of you also really have is a lot of confidence in yourself and in your abilities, and your ability to go into a scenario where you may not know the people very well. You know how to get to know them. You know how to represent yourself. And I was at a conference. It's probably been a couple of years now, but I had talked a little bit about being genuine, as you mentioned, Megan, and how important it was to, actually do your job the way you think is the right way to do your job. It's okay, even though, like in sales, there's many men who are salespeople, and we may look at them and thinking, well, I must have to sell like that to be successful. And actually, someone came up to me after my speech, and she said, I am so glad I was here to listen, because she was the one female salesperson amongst a group of men. And she goes, they all sell very differently, right? And, it's good to, talk about, well, what were you successful at, or what did you do? And she goes, I've always been embarrassed to talk about what I did because it was so different than what they did, but yet I meet my goals. And she goes, sometimes I just need to get a sense for myself, like, it's okay. Like, I can do things differently, and that doesn't mean it's bad or so on. It's just a different way of approaching it. And so I'm just curious, do you guys see a difference? I mean, some of the traits that you use, that you talked about, is to have a lot of empathy is something that I would say maybe women tend to have more so than others. I don't want to typecast, but I don't know. It kind of gets that sense sometimes, like maybe we're the best salespeople.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think, it's a great conversation to have for sure. And I mean, I would say that, what are we at? 34%, I think, female in the telecom arena. And that's probably being generous, very generous. But I feel like both styles and both traits are when they're together in the room, you have the best of both worlds. That's sort of kind of how I look at it. And there's so many things that I look at, from the males in the room, and the way that they've got a lot of great assertiveness, and when they speak, and that those types of things that we have as well. But there's some of the characteristics and some of the traits that they bring to the table are things that I really admire, and not necessarily is my style. But then I also see that, on the female side, like you were kind of pointing towards, like being a little bit more nurturing and having some empathy, really being a great listener, right? I don't know if you guys have the children and the toddlers that you got to sit down with, or the 12-year old who's about to be a preteen, and she's got real feelings and real changes that are going on. And being able to sit down with her, and be a great listener, and understand what is going on the inside, not just going through the Outlook while I'm like, okay, sweetie, oh, that sounded really difficult. Being a really great listener and capturing some of the things. I think it works the same way in a conference room, with both, men and women, being able to, hone in on our traits and get the best out of both worlds. So I would say that, if you don't have a woman in telecom in the room, you're going to be missing out on some really important things that you may not have noticed. And then I could argue the other side, if you don't have a great male in the room, that's great at what he does, you could be missing out on that perspective as well. So definitely both of them seem to, look, we're all in this world together. So we both, together we're better. When together, some would argue you become one. So that's definitely how I look at it, for sure.
I guess another thought too is you guys have had some progress in your career. You're kind of at that point where you went through different sorts of roles before you got to where you were at. Do you have some recommendations for others as they maybe be starting in this? Because I think you could probably go into sales right away, right? There's lots of opportunities, but I think like many of us, we kind of go through a different sort of a zigzagging through our careers before we get to it. But do you have any recommendations for any, especially young women who are out there, and what might be a path that they might go to be able to get into the kind of position that you guys have? Megan, you want to start with you?
Sure, absolutely. I think, it's funny because it's different than my actual path. I didn't get into IT because I had this massive passion for IT. I just kind of ended up there. But having a long-term career in sales, I will say I think that one of the most important things is that you really maybe it's not something that you had a passion for immediately, but you develop that passion over time. And I think, you talked about healthcare. I feel the same way, by the way. I have a lot of friends that sell medical device, and it sounds a lot of fun until they tell me about the surgery parts. So that's not for me. But I think no matter what you're selling, you are always going to be a better salesperson if you are also somewhat of a SME. I think some salespeople just get into sales, and they don't, especially if they get into sales too early in their career, and they don't spend some time. You can do it while still a sales role, but you've got to focus outside of just the sales. You've got to truly understand what it is that you're selling through multiple aspects. If you're selling, services from an IT services company or consulting company, have you gone through and experienced what a project is like? Do you understand what some of the road bumps along the way are? And can you talk about those from experience and share stories about, yeah, that's a valid concern, and I'm not going to tell you what won't happen. And here's an experience where it did, and here's how we overcame that. So I think unless you can kind of develop those stories and really have information, you have to add value to the conversation to facilitate. So no matter what it is that you want to sell long term, I would say if you're wanting to start out in a sales role, immediately start learning more about that. Immediately start getting to the point where you can also be considered SME, and you're going to launch your career much further, much faster.
Such a great point. And I definitely think, this is a huge passion of mine, is helping the youth. I do a lot of intern and mentoring, and it's something that is just so important to me. because I had, I get everyone has their story and their backgrounds. And, my parents came over here from Newfoundland, Canada. If you guys have ever heard of that, it's where the Titanic sunk, like 300 miles away from where the Titanic sunk, which is why I'm probably obsessed. And anytime anything Titanic comes on, I cannot turn it off. But it is for them to kind of live out what they thought was the American dream, to get off the island, for dad to get over to Toronto, to Nortel, and then get to North Carolina, another hub, and then Florida, moving around, right? I mean, that's no it's not blind to see that can help to create a more dynamic personality in a young individual, right? Having to recreate yourself and become very versatile, and gosh, all the different friend groups I had to make. But I think what I tell a lot of my mostly women, actually, young ladies, in some of the mentoring programs, is that I always encourage them to, if their parents are, if they work, or, and a lot of them do, right? Their mommy and the dad's work. If you can spend time with them in whatever they do, and even if it means you're going to the office, you're taking your iPad because you're gonna get bored here and there, but being able to just talk to another adult and have a conversation and say, oh, I'm in high school and I really like doing this, right? And you're learning how to talk to people. You're learning how to engage and have conversations. You're learning you're learning social and nonverbal cues that are really hard to teach. You might say hi to somebody in the elevator that isn't in a hurry and really busy and doesn't want to talk to you. This is what we experience in sales. And so you're really learning about, just how to converse, how to communicate, that you can't read a book on. You have to experience it firsthand. And I was just so thankful. And this is, goes to my second point of being so grateful for those moments that my mom provided for me. And she was an incredible salesperson. And she incorporated me in almost every one of her jobs. And she sold cards. We had a restock at the grocery store. She sold Avon. She sold, she did promotions. She ended up working at a really incredible home building company. And when I was in high school, and my sister and I, we had to go help her do all of these things. We had to be at the Tom Thumb or the Kroger's, wherever you guys are at 6 a.m. in the morning, restocking and meeting all these different people. And it was just an incredible opportunity for me. I didn't realize that until I got older. But what I was doing was developing my conversational skills, right? And learning how to talk to people in every walks of life, whether it was the manager of the store, the general manager, the owner of the home building company, or the stocking, guys or girls, in the back, right? Or the meat guy, what it was just all the different people, all the different personalities, all the different ranks, right? Which is what we have to do right now in sales. Yes, it's great when I have that C-level relationship and that president relationship, but he's not the one that is boots on the ground every single day, making the product or the service work. It's those people that I need to listen and learn from the most, so that I can make sure and put the right solution in front of them. So I really encourage people, young ladies and young gentlemen, to really get out there and go with their parents, or maybe an aunt and an uncle, and see if that comes naturally to them. See if talking to people comes naturally to them. It did not for my sister, and my sister is a doctor. So there you have it. And she's married to a neurosurgeon, and they are all doctors in their doctor world. So from Johns Hopkins. So they're very, very good at what they do. But that wasn't the personality, that she really was comfortable with. And it started coming with me. And I'm so grateful for that time that I had in all of those different worlds. Megan, your story it kind of spoke to me about your, when you were young, kind of being that entrepreneurial mind frame. I was helping my mom at the spec home. She would get so busy with a client, and we didn't want to lose an opportunity with somebody else coming in, a nice new family to the neighborhood that wanted to get a house, right? And if there's no one there to help them, you got 3 minutes to like give them a warm cookie and a Coca-Cola, right? And so it's like, my mom I just sort of picked up the pitch, and I was would go up to them right away, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Amanda, and Debbie Wayland. She'll be with you in just a second, but I'd love to show you some of the features that makes this home builder different from the rest." And so I'd walk through, and I'm like, "This is rounded corners. This is standard with this type of home, but you won't see that with our competitors. We've got hardwood, hand scraped floors. I mean, I had the whole thing, the 42-inch cabinets. I still remember, it's coming back to me now. By the time that this happened, I started getting bonuses as a young lady, and it was $500. I was 16 years old, because those referral cards that we would keep tally of would turn into sales, and it was because it was just timing, right? That was a whole timing thing, but being able to have that communication and learn those pitches that my mom did so well. So it's good. It's really, really good stuff. She passed away last year, so I loved her. So
Yeah. You guys are so inspiring. I'm really glad we had a chance to have this chat because, I think it's just, I think as there's so many roles we can all play, there's so many things we can do in life, and to hear, especially as young women are coming up, or even anybody in their career, and they're thinking, I want to do something different. I wonder if I could do this, or if I wonder if I could do that. And this is a great way to hear and get a glimpse into what would it be like if I was more on the front lines, and maybe could I do it? Because I can listen. I can, I like to have a conversation, and, maybe that's a great role for me. So I really appreciate, the passion that you guys have shown and give us a glimpse into, what's important and how to be a great salesperson. So thank you very much for your time, for being here with us today.
awesome. Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
What a great opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. And it was so nice to meet you, Megan, and hear your story as well. Such a great time.
Awesome to meet you as well. It's funny how many similarities you can spot in a short conversation from people in similar roles. So
well, you guys will now
sisters.
need to network, right? Now we've made another network, so that buddies. So that's a good thing.
That will for sure be happening. Me and Megan, we're already LinkedIn friends, so don't worry.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Wow. I'll tell you, I am ready. I know we have a really good podcast if we talk about everyone's first job.
Yes.
I just first of all, Megan, you selling butterfly clips, and then doing the internship in, where was it? You were doing it. It was great. The variety of all the people's first jobs and jobs. I worked in sales in a motorcycle shop in college. I sold accessories. Just so you know, I'm trying to jump in on the sales thing. So that was great. What a great conversation. Yeah.
What a great conversation. Yeah, they were just, Amanda just had such a wealth of just, knowledge and inspiration and thoughtfulness about what it means to be a salesperson. And Megan, I felt like the two of you were like, are you sisters? That's kind of how it felt like to me. Twins. Because it just seemed like
Twins
you
separated
both,
at birth. Yeah.
It seemed like you both had the same perspective and what you found as success. So I just thought that was very cool. It was really great to listen to both of you. And I just think, it really is inspiring. I wish I would have listened to something like this when I was earlier in my career and not be so afraid of sales. I was afraid of sales, and I had to convince myself, like, I'm okay, I can do this. And turned out that I like to do it, but it took me a little time. So you guys figured it out really early.
I do want to make one note of VAR, which Amanda brought up. Not everybody knows a VAR is a value add retailer. So they're like groups that resell or have equipment, and just wanted to put that note in. The other part I wanted to say is a lot of the skills that you and Amanda talked about, Megan, are really skills everyone should kind of work on, because active listening, even if you're not in sales, I think active listening really helps you get to the meat of the problem you're trying to solve in any situation. So I really appreciated that active listening comment. I thought that was a really strong point of view. Yeah. And then also Amanda's point is together we're better. And she talks about the different characteristics that men and women each bring to the sales cycle. I thought that was an important point of view too.
Yeah,
So
I thought that was too.
yeah.
Well, Jeannie, I think it was a great discussion today. So I'm really glad we had both Megan and we had Amanda on the phone and got a chance to talk to them. So thanks for setting that up. It was another great session.